welcome to the one and only Tszyu.
Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, April the 14th, 2025, and as always, great to have you along. I see there's a few people in the chat at the moment, so welcome to the show, and those that are listening to this show after the fact on Spotify. So as I said, we've got a few in the chat. There's a bit going on. We had the Boots Ennis, Amantis Stanionis fight yesterday. We had the UFC yesterday. I know it's a boxing show, but got to give credit where credit's due to Alex Volkanovski. Bit going on all over the place, and I can see the comments in the chat at the moment. There's all sorts of questions in there. Let's get started. If you're new to the show, then feel free to put your question, opinion, whatever it might be, in the chat below. And as it says there, we'll talk some boxing. It's your show. You determine which direction we take, and whatever comes up, we address. So don't be shy. The viewership has been really good lately, so why not come on and have a say, and don't just be a viewer. Get involved with the show. We'll see if we can get to you. I guarantee I'll do my best to get to every single person's comment out there, as long as it's done in or with good taste. All right, let's get it started. We've got Sam Nixon. How are you, Sam? Welcome to the show, mate. I heard this week Keith Thurman may be fighting Bakram and Tszyu to fight Sebastian Fundora next. What are your thoughts, and are they just rumours? I haven't really heard that, if I'm being honest, Sam. I try and scour most of the sites. It could have just been maybe a YouTuber or an influencer or whatever they are, maybe having the say. I'm not sure. That would surprise me, Sam. I would think that Keith Thurman would be, I would say, 99% locked into the Tszyu fight in July. I think that No Limit have done the hard work about, with bringing him over here to fight Brock Jarvis, really exposing him to the Australian public. And it makes sense for both fighters. I think it's a perfect fight for both guys. This is Tim and Keith. So I'd be really surprised if that was the case, Sam. But look, you never know. Bakram Murtazaliev can't get a fight with anyone else. No one really wants a piece of him. And it's interesting that after what he did to Tszyu's actually had a fight since then, and Bakram Murtazaliev hasn't. So, but you never know. If it's for the world title, maybe Keith Thurman would say, okay, well, I'm 36, 37 years old, whatever he is now. Got to take the opportunities while we're there. But I haven't heard that, Sam. If anyone else is in the chat that has heard that, let us know. But that's news to me, mate. But I would doubt that Sebastian Fundora would give Tszyu a rematch after beating Joey Spencer. I think Sebastian Fundora's got so many other options out there at the moment. I'm not sure why he'd want a piece of Tszyu. There's not that much to gain out of it. I know it's the grudge match, the rematch, all that sort of stuff, and maybe if he came out to Australia, it'd be big business. I don't think that will happen. I think if it does happen, they'll fight in the States. I'm just not sure whether the timing's right there, Sam. But hey, as I said, you never know. Old mate Big J, what do you got there? Oi, mate, how's it going? Well, thank you. As I mentioned, it's really disappointing that the Robinson-Chloe Chaos match was not on a No Limit show. A fight of that significance deserves a bigger platform, not a club show. Yeah, I'm with you, Big J. I actually did see your video the other day, and I know you commented about that. You spent pretty much, 19, 20 minutes, whatever, talking about this. I'm with you. I do think there's got to be some reason behind it. You wouldn't have thought that No Limit would turn down this fight, especially because they promoted Desley's fight with Kay Scott, and they haven't really got a pretty deep female roster. So I'm surprised they didn't try and make it happen. Now, I've got a feeling if it ended up on a Sam LeBruna fight night at the Melbourne Pavilion, I don't think they would have been paid a lot. And this is no disrespect to Sam. I'm not having to go on him. This is just life on the club circuit. There's not a lot of money to spend. So I'm not sure they would have been paid that much. So the only thing I can think of is that somewhere along the line, someone's upset somebody or something's happened. But would have made perfect sense, Big J, especially with the Tszyu fight only last weekend. Would have been great. I think you did say, and I 100% agree with you, sort of ditch the international fight with Saavedra and Nielsen and put that fight on instead. I think these big pay-per-views in Australia featuring an Australian in a main event should feature Aussies. Now, I get that they've signed Saavedra by the sounds of things and they want to get him a fight, or whether it's contractually obligated or something like that. But I think we all agree that on the day it was a real vibe killer, a mood killer. And I just don't think that it should happen. I think they should have went for something like this. An all-female fight would have been fantastic. By all accounts, it was a good fight. I didn't see it. I didn't buy the fight for $40. I had to work anyway. But, $40 is a lot to pay. But let me know, anyone that did pay the money and watch it, let us know your thoughts. I just thought with the money being $40 for a pay-per-view, I'd be staggered if they got more than a couple of hundred views at that price. But hey, you never know. Hopefully that was more. I normally do love supporting the fight nights and the Aussie boxers and the promoters, but Jesus, it was a tough one being $40, wasn't it? We'll get another one from Big J. Full credit to Sam LaBruna for getting the job done. Yep, for sure. But pointing it beyond the putting it behind a $40 paywall is just insulting. It's what does it say there? It's bad enough what main event charge for the shows, but $40 for a club show. Yeah, no, I'm with you, mate. I'll be honest. I don't mind paying the $70 for a no limit pay per view. Having said that, is Sam Goodman versus what was his name? The Mexican guy is fighting worth $70? Absolutely not. Unless it's a fully stacked undercard, no way. But the Tszyu, the Nikita Tszyu, if people want to support, or pay that amount of money, well, they're going to make it $70, aren't they? But you think about it. If you go to the fights themselves, you're paying hundreds of dollars plus airfares or petrol money or accommodation and food and drink and everything at the show. $70 isn't a lot to spend for a big fight. This is a bit different, though, because I know, with all due respect to the girls, apart from that, the rest of the card left a little bit to be desired. And so much so that I've seen a good friend of the show, actually I've had him on a few times, Joel Camilleri, has pretty much spent the last 48 hours or even longer, nearly 72 hours, pretty much defending himself on social media. And I did see on his social media the fight. Now, look, I'll probably maybe upset some out there. I thought it was embarrassing. And I understand Joel has tried to, what would you call it, justify the whole thing by saying, look, he wasn't the original opponent. His original guy didn't get a visa and all the rest of it. And that's fine. Don't fight at all, Joel, mate. I think to put that fight on with that guy, then look, he did have someone actually put on his social media or somewhere on one of the social media sites the footage of his opponent from Saturday night in his last fight. Now, credit to the guy, he actually did win. But the guy who was fighting looked like he'd walked off the street and never had a lesson in his life. Neither did the guy, actually, that Joel fought on the weekend. Now, I just thought it was a bad look, and it's something I think we've got to try and get away from. Look, and I like Joel. He's a great guy. I just would have thought in that instance when the original guy pulled out, I'm sure that Joel and his team and everyone would have looked at that guy and went, surely we cannot bring this guy to Australia. Surely. No one's going to buy this. No one. Well, not literally buy it, but just buy it in general, whether with money or just doing the pub test. Surely they would have looked at this guy and said, no, we can't do it unless we can get someone either local or somewhere reasonable around Australia that's cheap to get him in and he's not going to want much money. I just would have scrapped the fight. I just wouldn't have fought if I was Joel. I would have postponed it and gone on another show. And I know Sam LaBruna's got behind Joel in his career now, which is fantastic. But, geez, that fight, it would have been better off not happening because, as I said, it was embarrassing for Joel. I hate to say it. It was embarrassing for Sam as the promoter. Again, I hate to say it because they all do great jobs. And it was embarrassing for Australian boxing. And, I know that won't go down well with a lot of people, but it's just the facts. And fights like that, we need to stamp out in Australia. Now, I'm on my soapbox here, so you asked, Big J. Actually, you weren't actually asking about that, were you? Actually having a crack at the $40 paywall. Well, there's no way they should have been putting the hand out for $40. I know the main event was good, but have that fight on the card. And to go a little bit further, the Victorian Combat Board, they need to be held accountable in situations like this, because their job, now I know I'm getting way behind with the chat, but I don't care, because I'm going to say this. Having dealt with them for 5 or 6 years, and I did 21 shows or something like that. Now, their sole job is to police boxing in Victoria. That is their job. Now, the promoter, this is the way it works if you don't know. Being the promoter, you pay your fees, and they're more than happy to take your fees. Don't worry about that. They'll take your money off you with no dramas at all. Then you have to submit your card to them. Okay, so you have to give them the fight card. They then have to go through it and tick. They have to tick it off. Then once it's ticked off, then you're right to go. So in this instance here, what sort of homework have they done on this guy? What homework? Now, I know there's probably not a lot of vision out there on this guy, but someone's dug it up. It's because someone put the YouTube footage on his social media, or one of the other boxing sites' social media. So someone was able to find it. You think maybe someone at the Victorian Combat Board, in their wisdom, in the 9-to-5 job, they have a nice cushy government job in the offices, and that's even if they're at work these days, don't they all just work from home? One of those guys or girls has jumped on BoxRec and had a look at this guy and said, hey, Joel or Sam, hey, I understand this guy, your other opponent's, his visa hasn't come through and you're looking for someone, but we cannot, in good faith, with doing our job, put up this guy to fight you on that night. And they've just signed it off, and away they go. And I'm not so sure about the other states. I don't monitor them a lot, but there's been some horrific matchups in Victoria over the journey in the last probably 10, 15 years since I've been watching the pros in Victoria and been involved in it. And I understand late replacements come in and there's injuries and all that sort of stuff, but there needs to be more done by the Victorian Combat Board. It's hard enough with boxing to be taken seriously by a lot of people, let alone this. Now, again, Joel's a great guy. I think he's a very, very good fighter. I wish him all the best. Sam is a very good promoter as well and doing good things for not just Victorian but Australian boxing. He put the footy show on, actually this time last year it was, with Gather Round in Adelaide. So I'm not trying to just have a go at them, but in some respect I suppose I am. All together, along with the Victorian Combat Board, we have to do better. These fights shouldn't be allowed. And as I said, Joel spent the last sort of 48 to 72 hours. He's put a post up today with his original opponent. Hey, that's great, Joel. The original opponent might have been able to handle himself better. I don't give a shit about the original opponent. I give a shit about the guy you fought on Saturday night. And I'll say it again, it would have just been better if he just had cancelled the fight and tried to get on another card or whatever. Doesn't matter. That guy should not have been in the ring. And the fight that he actually put up, or whoever put it up on social media, on YouTube, it looked like it was in someone's lounge room or someone's shed. That's what it looked like. It was like it was in someone's back shed. There was no one in attendance. Obviously, there was the referee and then there was the judges. I reckon I counted 3 or 4 people in the crowd. So what the hell? And this is the guy we're getting in to fight. It wasn't a main event, but a supposedly like big fight night in Melbourne. And this is what the best we can do, guys. We've got to do better. Got to do better. All right, I'm going to move on. Is that? Hey, that's Joel on the phone now. I'm only joking. Joel, if you're watching, mate, I love you, but you got to do better, mate. You got to do better. All right, Asbot. Hi, everyone. Boots at 154 versus Tszyu. Does Boots carry all that goodness at 154 in general? I like that, Asbot. Does Boot carry all that goodness and that nourishment at 154? I think so, Asbot. I think he'll carry 154 really well. He's got some unfinished business, I think, at 147. I did say this morning on the Walking Boxing show that I think the time is now to move up. Now, I know he's got Brian Norman and maybe Mario Barrios there. What's actually, I'm going to have a quick look. And when's the last time Mario Barrios fought? Actually, it was on the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson card, wasn't it? All right, so I'll just disregard that. When was that? I can't even remember what it was. Yeah, look, I know they're there and they're advertising for him to get those belts, Asbot, but I mean, there's so many good fights at 154. If Norman's going to continue to give him grief about purses and all this other crap and being taxed and all this bullshit he's been going on with, and Mario Barrios is intent on fighting a 40-something-year-old Manny Pacquiao or whoever else, well, move up, Boots. Give the belts up. If he gives those belts up, if he moves to 154, there's going to be probably 4 champions there that are all going to want a piece of Boots Ennis. It's a big fight, dangerous fight for all those concerned. But he's got some credit 154, and does he carry it up? I think so. As bot, I don't think Tszyu is anywhere near ready for Boots Ennis at the moment, mate. If I'm being honest, look, Tim looked great last week. But I'm telling you, Joey Spencer ain't Jaron Boots Ennis. That's for sure. And he looked really good yesterday. I thought he moved really well. Very composed, really picked his shots. And Stanionis, while he's limited, he's still a dangerous guy. And he gave him a beatdown, didn't he? I mean, what's his other guy? Stanionis had his moments. But I thought it was a classy performance from Boots. Still not getting carried away with Boots, by the way, because, I mean, Stanionis, as I said, is limited. Game, but limited. But I think he can fight, and I would love to see him at 154 and maybe against Tszyu, but I think Tszyu would need at least a couple of more fights before it even looked that way as bot. But you never know. We can dream, can't we? What do we got there? Flash Wilson. G'day, you champion. Well, thank you, Flash. I appreciate that, mate. I certainly hope your keys have been found and handed in. I have a question for you. How do you think Tim might go having a trainer like Keith Porter train Tim? Well, thanks about the keys. If you didn't know, I put it on Walking Boxing over the weekend. I went for a walk, had my video camera in the car from the previous night because I had it at the pub and I was doing some stuff there. I left it in the car, so I raced out with my keys, opened it up, got my camera out, and Neil's halfway down the driveway by then, and I've got to race after him because he races out the door before I have a chance to put the harness on him, so he's gone. So I'm thinking, well, I can't go inside and put the keys inside because he's going to be halfway down the road. And at the moment, we've got heaps of tourists around with our Honor Avenue. It's a really beautiful stretch of cherry blossom trees, and we get thousands of people come over the weekend to check them out. And I would have thought there's cars going up and down the road. I didn't want to risk it, so I just put them on top of my wife Tara's car. Thought it was all good. I'll just get him when I get home. Little did I know that she had to take our son to work and drove off with my keys on the back of the car, and that's the last I've seen him. She did go down to the police station today, Flash, and ask the cops whether someone had handed them in, and no good, mate. So I don't know where they are, and yeah, I don't know whether they'll ever turn up again, mate. We'll see. As far as your other question goes, how do you think Tim might go having a trainer like Keith Porter train Tim? I think so, Flash. I think someone like a Keith Porter, I think it's hard to say who would be a good fit for Tim. Now, I'm certainly not trying to oust Uncle Igor from a job here, although I have been critical of him in the past, and I'll stand by all my comments. I'm trying to think who would be a good fit for Tim. Maybe it could be Keith Porter. I'm trying to think whether would someone like a Freddie Roach be good for Tim? Maybe not. Robert Garcia? Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. It's got to be the right fit. It's one thing saying this guy or that guy. I think someone maybe like a Virgil Hunter would be good for Tim. Just call it a gut feel. I don't know. But Keith Porter, yeah, I mean, he's only really trained his son, Sean, hasn't he? So I suppose we don't know. I actually have met Keith. Tszyu Brown and I, when we were in Vegas, I was, nearly 2.5, nearly 3 years ago. And we got to meet Keith, and we actually went to his house for a couple of drinks and chewed the fat with him in his gated community house. He came and picked us up in his, a Dodge Charger. I think he had a couple of them in his garage. So that was a real treat that night, Flash, to go to Keith Porter's house and have a couple of drinks with him. It was great. Well, we had a couple of drinks. He just drank Pepsi, I think, so it was good. But, yeah, no, you never know, Flash. You never know. All right, Sammy T, do you think Joel has what it takes to beat either Matteo Tapia? Sorry, this is Andre Mikhailovich, Matteo Tapia, Isaac Hardman, or Nikita Tszyu? Very good question, Sammy. One thing I'll say about Joel, I don't think he's world-class, but he can trouble world-class fighters. Make no mistake about that. And what I mean by that, he's very awkward. He's in, he's out. He's got a good jab. He's got really awkward type of movement. He'll lead with the left. He'll lead with the right. He's all over the shop, but it's effective. And I've got a lot of respect for Joel. How does he go against these fighters? I think he beats Andre Mikhailovich. I don't think he beats Matteo Tapia. I would say him and Isaac Hardman would be 50-50. I don't think he beats Nikita, although he would give Nikita fits, I think, because of that awkward in and out sort of style. And who knows, maybe they've done some rounds up in Sydney together. when he was the trainer up there. So, excuse me. So you never know. I still think Nikita wins, but that would be a real awkward fight for him. I don't think they'd put Nikita in with Joel. I think he'd be too dangerous, too awkward, too much to lose there, I reckon. But as for the others, as I said, I think he'd beat Andre, wouldn't beat Tapia, and I think he'd be 50-50 against Isaac. So we've got an even spread there, haven't we? All right, Tom's dad, Naz. Evening all. Best I've seen Boots look against Stanionis. I hope he stops chasing belts at 147 and throws his hat in at 154 now. Great fights to be made. Yeah, I mean, think of some of the fights, Naz. Ortiz would probably be the one I'm probably thinking of that makes the most sense. But hey, Bakram Murtazaliev, we just mentioned Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora. Just some great fights to be had there. Even a Madrimov or what's his name, Sergey Boachuk would be another good one. So heaps of good fights there. And, that's, if you want to be great, you've got to test yourself and try and be great. And I just think he's a 154-pound fighter who is killing himself to make 147. So I think the day and age of this being the weight bully, I'm thinking they're coming to an end, and I'm welcoming it to come to an end. I think with sports scientists being more involved these days, they're realizing that, hey, you might make the weight, but you're only going to be 75% of what you could be. So why not go up to your natural weight, or around what you should be fighting at, and you will then at least be 100% healthy and everything, can give yourself the best possible chance. I've never really understood why these guys are losing 8, 9, 10 kilos just to make weight. I think that time they've spent making weight could be better spent planning for the fight and making themselves healthy. But we will see, mate. We will see. All right, where are we? Tony Clifton. Could someone answer a question? Why does David Diamante, the DAZN ring announcer, say the surname twice when he introduces the fighters? I kind of like it as it gives an old school feel. Boots is grouse. Yeah, I have noticed that, Tony. Now, back in the day, there was a commentator. Now, I'm not sure whether Jimmy Lennon did it. I don't think he did. No, because if he did it, you'd think his son, Jimmy Lennon Jr., would do it. And I don't think he does. There was a announcer back in the 70s and 80s, and I can't remember his name. And he used to do it. I remember he used to always do the big New York fights. That's just when they had a lot of fights in New York. And he would say the name twice. I like it. I'm with you. I think it sounds good to say the name and then repeat it. It does really take you back to the retro days, doesn't it? So, yeah, but I'm not sure why he does it. I've just got a feeling he does it as a throwback maybe to those great ring announcers from the past, Tony. But I suppose we could ask him the question if we ever come across him, mate. If I'm ever overseas at a fight and I see him, I'll ask him for you. There you go. All right, where are we? Naz again. Zach Quinn Moses and Amari Jones both look good as well. Oz and international prospects will be a great walking boxing topic on a quiet day. Yeah, for sure, Naz. I didn't actually see the undercard yesterday. I had to work with the UFC on at the pub, so I only really came back home last night and watched the main event. But I did hear good reports about them, mate, and there's a few people raving on about them on social media. So if I get a chance, mate, I'll check them out. But yeah, really good prospects, both of those guys, and not a bad topic there, mate. Some of the best international prospects would be great. I'll see what I can do. Oh, and Australian as well. Yeah, okay, yep, we can do that. See if we get a spare time. There's not really much to talk about. We'll bring that up. All right, Sammy T. Out of all the fights you've been to live, and I know that's heaps, what is the most brutal knockout you've seen in person? Well, that's pretty easy, an easy one there, Sammy. It was Manny Pacquiao over Ricky Hatton. That was my first ever big fight in Vegas. Wasn't my first fight in Vegas. I'd been about 6 years before, and I saw Shane Mosley fought. Was it Raul Marquez? No, that's not him. Hang on, let me just. I only went 3 rounds, and it was a really pretty much a waste of money. But I just wanted to be there. My wife and I were in Vegas on holidays, and we got lucky, and Shane Mosley was fighting. Let's have a quick look and see who he fought. It was 2003. It was Raul Marquez. All right, there was a no contest after 3 rounds. I'm trying to think who else was on that card. Let's have a quick look because I didn't recognise any. Wow, there you go. Antonio Margarito was on the card. He beat Andrew Lewis. Kelly Pavlik was on the card. Wow, I don't remember that. And Josecito Lopez. Yeah, okay. I didn't realise that at the time. There you go. But, yeah, no contest after 3 rounds. But as far as, the most brutal knockout, it was actually, hang on a sec. Well, Manny Pacquiao over Ricky Hatton is the obvious one, but I was also at the Manny Pacquiao Juan Manuel Marquez number 4 fight where Manny got knocked out. So, no, I'm going to stick with the Ricky Hatton one, maybe because, I don't know, whether I was a little bit closer or whatever. The Marquez one was pretty brutal, but where I was, I heard the crack. I heard the crack of Manny Pacquiao's left hook hitting Ricky Hatton square on the chin and obviously putting his lights out. That would probably be the most brutal knockout I've seen. And Marquez over Pacquiao would be a close second. All right, Big J, congrats to the Volk. Once again, Alex, the great Volkanovski, is the featherweight champion at 145 in the UFC. He kicked the living crap out of a young Brazilian fella in a unanimous decision. All hail the Volk. I don't think he kicked the living crap out of him, Big J. I thought it was just a well-rounded performance. I thought Lopez actually performed pretty well. I think, I don't know how to score UFC. I'm probably scoring it like I would with a boxing match. I probably gave him at least 4 rounds. Or I was just gonna say at least 3 anyway to get the decision. I think 4 rounds. There was one of the rounds I think that Lopez might have won, but hey, it was a great performance from Volkanovski. 36 years of age, you got the featherweight belt back, and all hail, as you said, to Big Joe. I actually got asked today, or not asked, it was a comment on YouTube. Is Volkanovski maybe Australia's greatest ever combat fighter, including all the arts? And I did disagree. I still think Jeff Fenech is the man. 15 world title fights, 13 wins. Beat some great fighters, or not great, but a lot of very, very good fighters along the way. Should have been a 4-division world champion. So for me, it still is Jeff Fenech for me as our greatest combat fighter of all time. But and I think, look, I don't know. I can't speak for the UFC fraternity, but I'm not quite sure the UFC, since the Volk's been around, is probably the competition's been as deep as maybe it has in boxing. I don't know, but either way, it doesn't matter. You can only beat who's around at the time that you're fighting, and the great man has got it done. So well done to Alex Volkanovski. All right, Sammy, I see Joel Camilleri. We just discussed that. Yep, demolishes a Tanzanian opponent. Is that where he's from? Tanzania. First round, heavily implied he's going to manage himself going forward. Yeah, well, as I said, Sammy, I don't care who was managing Joel, even if it was himself. That fight shouldn't have taken place, mate. It should not have been allowed to happen. And look, I don't know. I think Peter Maniatis actually manages Joel Camilleri, so I'm not sure what happened there. Obviously, is the original opponent, as Joel said himself, didn't get the visa. I just think Sam LeBrun has tried to do the right thing and just get him a fight. He's probably tried everyone. He's probably rang everyone and no one's available. And he's just, look, mate, it's either this guy or nobody. Because what happens is, in this instance, you have a lot of agents out there. So you ring, it's happened to me many times, don't worry. You pick up the phone, you go through your phone, you ring all the agents all over the world. There's always someone that knows people in New Zealand and Fiji, and then there's someone that knows someone in like in Thailand or Indonesia or somewhere like that. And then you've got someone with an African connection like what's here, and you ring them all up and you just see what you can do. Now, as I said before, I don't care what was happening or when those agents come back, whoever the agent was to recommend this guy, it should have been thanks but no thanks. But anyway, but Joel himself, Sammy, should have said, look, as much as I want to fight, I'm out. But if he's going to manage himself, well, if anyone's going to do it, Joel could do it because he's got a very, very good boxing IQ inside and outside the ring. He knows it all. And if that is the case, then I'm sure he'll do a good job managing himself. All right, Eminem, does Boots Ennis now move into the world pound-for-pound top 10? Good question, Eminem. No, not for me, not yet. And where did I actually have it here? I did, I think of my old notes here. I do, there it is, right there. I've got my pound-for-pound there. Now, this might, what will it do? Will it upset some people out there? They'll be bound to have someone that says, I know nothing about boxing. I'll give you my list just quickly. And you guys can make your own opinions of that. And I guarantee there's going to be some that question my sanity. But I'm going to go through it just quickly. All right. Because there's one fighter in there in particular you're not going to be happy about in his position. All right. Pound for pound. Just quickly. Number 10, I've got Gervonta Davis. Arguable, I know. Maybe Boots Ennis could be ahead of Davis. But at the moment, and maybe even Jai Patai, I just don't think Jai's resume is good enough at the moment. I know he's had the 2 wins over Breeders, but outside that, not a lot. So I'm going to stick with Javante Tank Davis at number 10. Number 9, I had David Benavides. I think he's done more than enough to be in the top 10 now. Number 8, I had Junto Nakatani. Number 7, I had Jesse Bam Rodriguez. These are the ones that will make people talk, I guarantee it. Number 6, I had Arta Beterbiev. Now, that might be too low for on the pound-for-pound list for Arta because he only got beat by a split decision, I think it was, from Dimitri, but I've got him at number 6. This is the one that's bound to cause some discussion. Number 5, Terence Crawford. Yep, and I know a lot of people have him at number 1, but for me, I've got him at number 5. I just don't think he's looked impressive. Well, he's only had 1 fight in nearly 2 years, and that was a very unimpressive performance over Madrimov. And I know he looked awesome against Errol Spence, but that's nearly 2 years ago. And these fighters in front of him at the moment have just, I think, gone past him. Most of these guys have fought 3, 4, even 5 times in that time, in the same period that Terence Crawford's had 1 fight. So for me, he's number 5. Number 4, I've got Canelo Alvarez. I think, since that fight in 2023 with Crawford and Spence, Canelo in the same time. Let me type in his record since then. I just can't remember who he fought in 2023. No, we fought last year. So in 2023, so he beat John Ryder and Jamal Charlo. I know, not the greatest of opponents. Well, Jamal Charlo was a unified champion at the time. John Ryder had earned his shot. But then last year, those 2 wins over Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, I think are good enough. All those 4 fights together are good enough for Canelo to go back past Terence Crawford. I'm just waiting for the comments to come through. I'll get to those in a minute. Number 3, I've got Dimitri Bivol for obvious reasons. Number 2, I've gone for Naoya Inoue at number 2. And number 1, Alexander Usyk. I think I have had Naoya Inoue at number 1 and Usyk at number 2. I've had a bit of a think about it. And I just think Alexander Usyk has just done more than enough to justify being number 1. I mean, his last 5 fights, he's had Joshua twice, Dubois, and Fury twice. I mean, you got to have him at number 1. And I've got Naoya Inoue at number 2. So there you go. Let me know. I'll go through the comments in a second. People thinking, what the hell are you on, having Canelo and Bivol above Crawford? Well, that's just my opinion. You can have yours. All right, Big J. Thurman would get slaughtered by Buckram if that's true. Hopefully, Tim does get his rematch, but I see mandatory challenges for Fundora coming first. Yeah, well, it looks like it's going to be Xander Zayas is next anyway. And then after that, it might be Virgil Ortiz. He's the interim champion. Bakram Murtazalia, let's have a quick look at his rankings. So he's obviously the IBF champion at 154. So, as always, number 1 and 2 rankings are vacant. I say it nearly every week. How the hell can you have rankings being vacant? You're either number 1 or you're not. So the number 1 highest ranked fighter is Erickson Lubin. So he's technically ranked number 3, but number 1. What is Murtazalia going to have a mandatory against nobody, is he? So Erickson Lubin is his number 1 ranked challenger. Xander Zayas is number 2. But if Xander Zayas fights Fundora, you'd think, I'm not sure why Lubin wouldn't want to fight Murtazalia. He's number 1 contender. But at the moment, Murtazalia is just sitting there getting cold. So would he get slaughtered by Buckram? No, I don't think so, Big J. I know I'm disagreeing with you a bit tonight, mate. I think Keith Thurman gives Buckram Murtazalia all he can handle. I think his style will be really hard for Buckram. You've got to remember, look, we've got to look past the whole performance against Tszyu. It was a fantastic performance. It was awesome. Totally obliterated Tszyu. But let's look at his entire resume and look at all his fights. I just think Tim pretty much served himself up on a platter to Buckram to get destroyed, the way he fought. Keith Thurman, there's no way Keith Thurman's going to do that. Keith's going to give him some movement. He's going to jab to the head, jab to the body. He's going to move. He's going to tie him up. He's going to confuse Buckram Murtazalia. I think Tim, I've got looking at your comment there with Tim in it. I think Keith Thurman would be a very, very good chance of beating Buckram Murtazalia. I've got to get past the Tszyu thing. As impressive as it was, look at his whole resume. Look at all his fights he's had. I think Keith Thurman is a very good chance of beating Buckram Murtazalia if that is true. We'll see. Still with Big J. No wonder Eddie Hearn expressed his concerns the other day These pay-per-view services are pricing themselves out of business. Congrats to Desley Robinson, by the way, IBF and WBO middleweight champ. Hopefully a big payday ahead. Yeah, well, she's calling out Clarissa Shields, Big J, and why shouldn't she? Good on her. I really hope she gets the fight with Clarissa Shields. Big ask. I mean, Clarissa Shields, Olympic gold medalist, multiple-time world champion. Very, very tough fighter. But, hey, you know, I welcome it. And I know there'll be people out there saying, oh, what is she thinking? She'd stay away. Hey, but I've said it on here before. The fighter's mentality is different to the average person out there. Desley Robinson will be saying to Clarissa Shields, hey, let's go. You know, the average fight fan out there going, oh, there's not no hope against bloody Clarissa Shields. What is she thinking? Desley Robinson saying, hey, let's bring it on. Fighters are made of, well, not just fighters, but winners in general. You know, world champions, whatever it might be, winners, whether it be in business or sport, welcome the challenge. Welcome taking on the best. And that's why I reckon Desley Robinson should continue to challenge Clarissa Shields. Why not? Why not? And as I said, Big J, I'm not that stressed about the pay-per-view. I mean, $70. You get hey, I put the Tszyu fight on at the pub last week, and it cost me $750. So talk about, you know, being exploited. Think about the poor pub owners out there. $750. I barely just covered the costs, and we had a really good crowd. Because this is not $750 in turnover. That's $750 profit. Then I've got the staff member on top of that, the extra staff member. So I barely just covered the costs. So I can complain. You can't, paying $70. I think you did say you go down to the pub and watch. So what are you complaining about, Big J? And if you do go down to the pubs, if you like Big J, not that there's anything wrong with it. That's why we put the fights on at the pub, to attract people to the pubs. But when you're there, all I'm going to ask is, not just you, Big J, everyone out there, if you do go to the pub and you're going to watch the fights, buy a beer or a soft drink, even go for lunch or whatever it might be, buy a packet of chips if that's what it's going to take. But support the pubs that put the fight on, because I'm telling you, if you don't, you talk about all these pay-per-view prices and the promoters and what they charge, again, with what main event charge us, what will happen is the pubs will say, well, I can't afford to put it on. You know, so they'll say, well, $750 for the fight. Staff member might cost you an extra $250. There's $1,000 in profit you got to make just to pay for the fight. This is a Sunday afternoon. Pretty tough. So I'll reiterate. If you're at a pub, buy a beer, better yet, get a counter meal or whatever it might be. Support the pub that is supporting you and putting these fights on. I'm not going to mention names, or no one will know who they are in here anyway, but I had people last week at the Tszyu fight drinking tap water, guys. Tap water. They wouldn't even buy a bottle of water. And we got bottles of water in the fridge for $3, whatever it might be. And by law, you've got to supply free water. That's just the way it is. And I had patrons asking for tap water. Now, I probably couldn't hide my disdain with those people, because what I wanted to say is, you cheap bastard, you can't even buy a $3 bottle of water. And I've just paid $750 so you can sit out there and watch the fight, and you can't even pay $3 for a bottle of water. But anyway, so again, guys, support the pubs. Do what you will with the promoters. If you're not happy with the $70 or whatever it might be, then don't buy it. That's fine. They will get the message. But again, I'll defend the promoters. They have to pay for the event. Tszyu versus Joey Spencer probably cost a couple of $1 million to put on. They've got to regenerate the money. So all I'm asking is, please look at it fourth dimensionally, not just, it's not worth $70. Okay? Get a few mates over. If you don't go to the pub, get some mates over, whatever. Think of the expense. If you all come over and get a pizza and a couple of beers, it's a pretty cheap day. Anyway, but it's a free country, Big J, and whoever else out there, you do what you want. I'm on the soapbox a bit tonight, aren't I? Sorry about that, guys. All right, Shadow Boxer. This is about the David Diamante ring announcer, announcing the names twice. Throwback to some of the old-time announcers who'd repeat their last name for the crowd due to the sound not being as good as in louder crowds. Thank you, Shadow Boxer. There's an explanation right there, and very well said. Thank you. Asbot, no way Thurman fights Buckram. I disagree. I think he'd prefer to fight Tszyu. But hey, if there's $1 million at stake and a shot at the IBF world title, Asbot, I think Keith Thurman takes it. All right, Glenn, thoughts? Thought Boots looked good, mixed his shots up nicely, and was defensively solid. Having said that, Stanionis offered very little. If you can't challenge for another belt, he should move straight to 154. Yeah. That's what I said earlier, Glenn. If Norman's playing hardball and Barrios is not really interested, just give up the belts and go to 154. It's not like there's no one at 154. You know, there's a whole smorgasbord of people he could be challenging. Now, maybe he wants to be the top dog at 147 and rule the division and whatever, and might make him feel better. But look, I think if he's going to be taken seriously as a pound for pound fighter, I think he has to go to 154. OG lights out. I don't recall ever seeing Tim in the WBC. Now he's ranked 8th. I smell a rat. Fundora fight, maybe. Yes, he is now ranked number 8 there. Keith Thurman's in at number 10. I did say the other day I thought it was number 11, but it's number 10. Although 1 and 2. Oh, hang on, that's IBF. Sorry, IBF. Tim is 8 and Keith is 10. The WBC, which have just come out, by the way, Tim is 6 and Keith Thurman 11. Yep. I'm not quite sure how you get a top sort of 10 or 11 rating after beating Brock Jarvis, but Keith's done it. Look, the only thing I can probably think of, OG, is that it's some sort of eliminator. Maybe if Tim and Keith fight, maybe the winner will go up and maybe be in the top sort of 2 or 3 of the division. That's all I can probably think of. I don't think it's going to be Fundora, mate, because apparently they're very, very close to making the Zayos fight. So I think it'll be Tim and Keith. It'll be Fundora and Zayos, and then maybe the 2 winners will fight after that. Although, we've still got Virgil Ortiz to contend with. He is the interim champion. He is the mandatory challenger. So he's going to have to get in first, isn't he? So if Tim does get past Keith Thurman, it's not going to be Bakram Murtazalov in the IBF. Who knows what's going on with the WBA because of Crawford still got that belt. And it would be Abbas Barrow and Jesus Ramos Jr. would fight for that belt. And then the WBO, well, again, Fundora would be defending the WBO and WBC titles against Ortiz. So I think it's going to be 12, if not 18 months, I reckon, OG, before Tim gets a fight for one of those world titles. He's got to get past Thurman yet, remember? All right, Glenn, and I'd add Ford on the undercard. Looked pretty bloody good against a guy that didn't come to fight. He landed 24 punches over 10 rounds, yeah. I didn't see the undercard, Glenn, and I did actually get that wrong the other day. I think I did mention that it was Abdullah Mason. It was, of course, Raymond Ford. So apologies about that. Someone did point it out to me. I just saw it quickly and thought it was Mason. But all right, random stuff. For some reason, Thurman just got rated, 10 in the IBF, and Barkram tweeted, "I'll fight you, Keith Thurman will never take that fight." Well, I tend to disagree, guys. I disagree. It's look. I'll say I think he fights Tim. That's the fight that makes the most sense. And obviously, you would probably think that Tim, I suppose, would it be the easier fight than Bakram Murtazalov? Maybe it's arguable, but either way, again, I'll say I think it's going to be Thurman and Tim and Fundora and Zayos, and Bakram maybe fights Lubin. Who knows? G'day, Bacon and Eggs. How are you? Who was the boxer that fought Danny Green? He threw himself to the ground after a little tap to the scon. There was almost a riot when he just slept on the canvas. I think he might have been a New Zealand boxer. No, it was actually an Aussie boxer, Tony. I'm sure someone's already commented. It was Paul Briggs. His jab, by the way, literally skunned the top of his head, and he went down like he'd been shot. And I think at the time, Tony, Paul was having all sorts of mental health problems outside the ring. He should never have been in the ring with Danny Green. And Danny and his team were at fault as well. They should never have agreed to let that fight go ahead. They moved it from Sydney to Perth because the Sydney or the New South Wales Combat Board wouldn't sanction it. So they moved the fight to Perth, and that's what happened. You talk about black eyes on the sport, Tony. That is a black eye that still I don't think has healed, to be honest. That was horrific as far as a reputation for Australian boxing went. Glenn. Yeah, it was right. Yeah, Briggs, having not fought for years, apparently heaps of issues. Green should never have fought him. Yep, I agree. All right, James Brown. Ennis is better than I thought he was. Ennis versus Bakram would be a good fight. I got Bakram. It would be a good fight, wouldn't it, Ennis and Bakram? I know I don't want to sort of be hating on Bakram too much, but I think I'd back Boots Ennis in that one. I mean, we don't know how he's going to go at 154, but from what I saw yesterday, I'd back Boots Ennis to beat Bakram Murtazalov. Sam, do you think Volk would do any good in the weight division in boxing? He has a hard chin and can swing. Depends on what level you're talking about, Sam. At domestic level, yeah. Internationally, no, I don't think so. He's got good enough skills in the UFC, because I've said it again on the walking boxing this morning. I've repeated it many times over the journey. I don't think UFC fighters spend enough time on boxing. Volk obviously has, because he's actually got good boxing skills. But I think, mate, in professional boxing, he'd be a good domestic fighter. He'd probably hold his own against some of the welterweights out there. But that's about it, mate. I don't think he's skilled enough to go at the international level. And that's okay, because some people are suited to one art, not the others. I mean, Tszyu might not make it in MMA. I mean, it's just the way, what your preference is and what you're made for. And Volk's obviously made for the MMA, where you got to be strong and, be able to grapple or box, grapple, kick, all that sort of stuff. But I just don't think, if it's just with his hands, Sam, I just don't think he's skilled enough, mate, to get past probably domestic level. Tony, in regards to Tim's trainer and who's a good fit, well, by all accounts, George Kambosos Sr. is an outstanding trainer. Just ask him, he'll tell you the exact same thing. Well, he might say that, Tony. George Sr., it's not George Sr., by the way, it's Jim Kambosos. George Kambosos, I think, is his grandfather. I know a lot of people have actually asked in the past, hang on, your dad's name's Jim, why are you George Kambosos Jr.? I'm pretty sure it's his grandfather, is George Kambosos Sr. Well, he might tell you that, Tony, but he's not actually a trainer at all. He's got another trainer. Jim is just the manager, mate, but he's a character. He's Jim. He'd probably have a crack at it. All right, Jack Pearce, boxing. You're saying that Kam's fight was a joke because the bloke obviously took a dive, right? I thought you meant it was because the guy was so bad, but he was a club fighter, but nothing shocking. I don't think he took a dive at all, Jack. I think he was just a guy that shouldn't have been in the ring. Simple as that. Obviously hadn't really had a boxing background. You got to remember, this is Tanzania. It's not like Freddie Roach has got a gym on the corner down the road, or what we have here in Australia and a lot of other countries. Lots of boxing gyms, lots of very talented trainers. Over there, you probably just got the local bloke who's self-taught, who just puts the pads on and hangs a bag up, and that's his boxing training. That's what I'm referring to. I don't think he took a dive, although sometimes these guys that come over here, when they get hit by a legitimate fighter, they're like, screw this, I think I'll just take the money and go home. So it's not like they're taking a dive. It's just like when they cop a couple of good punches, it's like, yeah, I really don't need this. 1,000 people screaming, yelling for my blood. And I got a guy that's 10 times the level that I am. Sometimes I just might think it's easier just to stay down. But as far as actually coming over and deliberately losing, I wasn't implying that at all, Jack. I think he did his best until he got hit. And then it was like, yeah, I'm out of here. But he was that bad, Jack. That's for sure. What's it say there? But he was a club fighter, but nothing shocking. He wasn't even a club fighter, Jack. Far from it. He was a novice fighter that shouldn't have been anywhere near a ring with an accomplished fighter like Kamakayo. I'm sure in Tanzania they have these backshed fights out in the middle of nowhere where it's pretty much the boys putting on the gloves and fighting each other. Doesn't mean you should come all the way to Australia and get knocked out, mate. It's just not right. I don't think anyway. There's Batman Boxing. How are you there, mate? What's that, Jack? Yeah, it was Paul Briggs. He had a brain injury leading to the fight, and people got wind, and there was a better betting plunge and a subsequent corruption investigation. Yeah, and I thought on the night too. I mean, Dunny wasn't happy. I mean, again, they only had themselves to blame. They've got a guy in there who hadn't fought for a long time, didn't look like he trained properly, and as you said there, he had brain concerns or injury concerns, mental health concerns, and then when he went down like he did, I think Danny called him a dog or a canine or something in the ring that night. A bit low when you're the reason why the fight happened, Danny, but let's again hope something like that never happens again. But this is boxing and it probably will. All right, Jack. Fantasy topic, 5x5, no limit versus Tasman. Who we got? Ooh, that's a good question, Jack. I might have to do some homework about that, and I might do it on a walking boxing episode. I might even do it tomorrow if I get a chance to go through. So, Tasman, who are the main fighters? You've got Jai Pataya. Well, no limit. I've got nobody that can match Jai Pataya. Justice Huni. Who's no limit got? Is at heavyweight. Maybe Brendan Grush could fight Justice Huni. I think that ends one way. Actually, I'll do it in walking boxing tomorrow, but I would say, yeah, maybe Brendan Grush or maybe Talivaha from last week against Hoodie. That probably wouldn't be a bad fight. Connor Wallace against maybe Paulo Akuso would be a good fight. Who else have they got? Tasman. He fought on the last cards. Just trying to think. Anyway, I'll have a think about it, Jack, but good topic. Most brutal knockout I've seen in person. Melbourne Showgrounds. I sat way back and I felt it, and it was sickening. Jimmy Thunder, hands of steel and a huge heart. He was brutal back in the day, Tony. He was trained by Jack Rooney, I think, wasn't he, when he came to Australia? Jimmy Pugh was his real name, but went by the name Jimmy Thunder. Wow. Just a massive, massive puncher. He can knock you out with either hand. And I think he's on YouTube. Is it the fastest KO ever? It was like 2 seconds. Walked straight out and just went bang. I won't look at it now, but look it up on YouTube. Jimmy Thunder. Yeah, and rest in peace, Jimmy Thunder. He passed away a few years ago. Cal Jane, Johnny Lewis, best trainer. Yeah, he is, Cal, but he's also, I think, in his 80s now, so maybe not. Not at this stage. If you're looking at Australia, which I don't think you would do for Tim Tszyu, I don't know. I mean, I don't mind someone like a Lincoln Hudson. He doesn't get a lot of plaudits, but I think he's a good trainer, Lincoln. I don't think Tim would go Australian anyway. Cal, I think he'd go overseas. But anyway, John Wayne Parr has got to be close to the top of the Aussie combat tree. Yeah, maybe Mutsy. I don't know much about Muay Thai, mate, but yeah, it's a good call there. I don't know again much about how it works and how many titles and all that he won. I only know really boxing and a little bit of UFC, but yeah, I don't know enough to comment about that, mate. Although Glenn agrees, good call. Glenn, all right. Tank is not a top 10 pound for pound fighter. He hasn't beaten anyone. Well, mate, tell me another fighter. I'm sure it might be in the comments there. Who would you have in front of Tank? I mean, the only ones I would consider, as I said, is Jai Pataya. I don't think you say that Glenn there, that Tank hasn't beaten anyone. Well, I'll probably disagree just a little bit. I'll have a quick look at his record here. I think he's done more than enough to go ahead of someone like Jai Pataya. As much as I love Jai, apart from those 2 wins over, an aging Marius Breedis, that's probably about it. I mean, Tank Davis, he's beat, when was it, Leo? Was it Leo Santa Cruz? Yep. Leo Santa Cruz, good fighter back in the day, former world champion. He's beaten Mario Barrios. He's beaten Isaac Pitbull Cruz. He's beaten Rolly Romero. He's beaten Ryan Garcia. Beaten Frank Martin. I don't agree with you there, Glenn. I think he's had some good wins. Yuriokis Gamboa. They are people. They are good fighters, Glenn. Some of them world champions. So I'll go over it again. So Yuriokis Gamboa, good fighter. Leo Santa Cruz, I think former 2-time world champion. Mario Barrios, current welterweight champion. Pitbull, former world champion. Romero, former world champion, although I don't know how. And Ryan Garcia. You say he hasn't fought anyone, Glenn. He knocked out Ryan Garcia. And I don't want to hear about the weight drain. That's not Tank Davis's fault. Ryan Garcia signed onto the fight. And when you get into the ring and you've signed the contract, then you are good to go. So I'm not sure where you come from there, Glenn, that he hasn't beaten anyone. I've just rattled off about 5 or 6 very, very good fighters he's beaten. So, and, I put him above Jai Pataya. Who else would there be? I'm just trying to think. I think who's Boots Ennis beaten? Nobody. Who else is there? Teofimo Lopez, maybe? Yeah, but since he beat Loma, apart from Josh Taylor, that's probably the only half-decent win he's had since he beat Loma. So he hasn't beaten anyone either. He's probably the only other one I can think of. But apart from that, Devin Haney might have been there until he lost to Ryan Garcia. Look, I just can't see anyone else to put in front of him, Glenn, but I'm sure you'll comment, and that's cool. Batman, true. Crawford, super inactive. Yeah, look, if you're going by talent-wise, Batman, of course he's probably in the top 2 or 3, no doubt. But there's lots of things that come into it. Obviously, there's talent, but it's resume, it's activity, it's who you're fighting, who you're beating, of course. And that one fight for Crawford in nearly 2 years was very, very unimpressive. And in the meantime, I just think those other guys have gone past him. Shadow Boxer, no issue with your names and your pound for pound except Tank. That's cool, mate. Give me another name, mate. Give me another one. Give me another one and I'll shut up, as they say. Batman, Canelo, definitely above Crawford. Yep. Crawford over Canelo, says Glenn. I would replace Tank with, who's that? Explicit? Taraji. Who's that? Who are we talking about there? Taraji? I'm not quite sure who you're alluding to there. Explicit? Let me know. Batman. Crawford, best win is a guy that was finished from a car accident. Yeah, well, I mean, he has beaten the likes of Sean Porter and that. Actually, I'll bring up his resume there. He has beat some other fighters above, apart from Spence there, Batman, but he beat no one Jeff Horn, remember? All right, so you go through his resume there, probably the best ones, apart from, well, he was at lightweight there, wasn't he? Well, he beat Yurioka Scamboa as well. He's, of course, Jeff Horn for the welterweight title. These are just his greatest hits. Amir Khan, Cal Brook, Sean Porter, and Errol Spence, and Madrimov, of course. But yeah, I just talking resumes, he does not compare to the likes of Canelo and Bivol and Inoue and Usyk. As simple as that. Yep, 5 fights in 5 years. Daniel Smart, how are you, Daniel? Sorry, Big J. I don't think Barkram runs through Thurman at all. Thank you, Daniel. Great minds think alike, mate. I think Thurman's still at 36-37. Beats him, said it before. Thurman beats Tim too. Yep, good call, Daniel. Thurman beats neither, says Batman. So this is why we had the discussion, guys. It's good. And Canelo's best fight in the last few years is Munguia. But Glenn, he's cleaned out the division, mate. He's beaten everybody apart from Dimitri Bivol, and I've got Bivol in front of him. He's won undisputed titles. He's defended the titles against mandatories, left, right, and centre. And yeah, you can only look. We go back to the likes of Hagler and Leonard and all these guys. Even go back further, Ali and Joe Lewis. All those guys, you can't fight and beat the top fighters every single time. But I think Canelo, even though he fights twice a year, has done that. I'll quickly go back to his record. The last few years, the last few fights: Edgar Berlanga, Jaime Munguia, Jamal Charlo, John Ryder, Glennie Golovkin, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, Sergey. Well, the Kovalev fight was a bit. How you going? Daniel Jacobs, another Triple G win. Miguel Cotto, we're going back, of course. Miguel Cotto, Erizlandi Lara. I mean, go back as far as you want. But in the last few years, he's beaten all the top guys. Who else? I know David Benavidez is going to come up, okay? And I'm not going to argue with that, not at all. But his last few fights, I mean, last year, Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia, probably the two, apart from Benavidez, the two best 168-pounders in the world. He fought and beat them both. Okay, I'm not going to give him too many credits for Jamal Charlo. He was a 154-pounder coming up. John Ryder more than earned his chance. I've got no qualms with John Ryder at all. And before that was the Triple G fight. So since he's lost to Bivol, the win over Triple G, the win over Ryder, the win over Charlo, the win over Munguia, and the win over Berlanga. Deserves his spot, Glenn. All right, Cal. Tim beats Fundora. Keith beats Buckram. What was that? I don't know. I can't sort of understand that, Cal. I sort of get what you're saying there. Daniel says agree to disagree. That's cool. Munguia over Mean Machine all day. Yep. Batman. And people felt Madrimov beat Crawford. I wasn't one of them, but yeah, there were a few out there. He doesn't fight that often, doesn't fight the best often, and very rarely fights nothing like pound for pound. I'm with you there, Batman. I expected a bit more backlash than I've got with Crawford, but looks like a few of you agree anyway. If Virgil beats Spence, says Batman, he's basically got the same best wins, and nobody thought Virgil lost to Madrimov. Yeah, you make a good argument there, Batman. I think if it came down to it, though, I would still say Crawford's above Virgil. I mean, talent-wise, you've got to have some sort of circuit breaker, and I just think Crawford's a better fighter than Virgil. But if they fought now, would Virgil have a chance against Terence Crawford? I suppose we won't know because he's going to fight Canelo, and that'll be it. But lots of different scenarios to consider. Batman, Daniel fair, but Thurman beat one man in 3 years. A guy Paro KO'd in a round. I'm not thinking much of it. Looks sharp, but still, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good call too, Batman. Glenn, He did not beat Crawford, competitive, but a clear Bud win. I thought the same, actually, Glenn. I thought Bud won. I wouldn't say clearly, but I had him 8 rounds to 4, maybe 7-5, worst case, but I thought he won. Thing is, Crawford was after the belts and fought who he needed to get them. Yep. The only thing I'll say, though, Glenn, is that he scraped by over Madrimov. As I said, I thought he won clearly, but it wasn't a great performance from Crawford. And then Madrimov was dominated by Ortiz. So, dominated, however you want to call it. I thought Ortiz's win over Madrimov was more comprehensive than Crawford's win over him as well. And I know styles make fights and all the rest of it, but we can all agree to disagree, I suppose. What's that, Cal? Still need VB on tap. They don't drink it, Cal. They don't drink it. What's that? Batman Glenn clear didn't outland him by like 4 punches. I'll let you guys work that out. What's that, Glenn? Canelo, on the other hand, has cherry picked for years. I don't agree with that, Glenn. I really don't. Apart from David Benavidez, who else hasn't he fought? He's fought everybody. He's cleaned out super welterweight, middleweight, and super middleweight. Even went up to light heavyweight. So I'm not sure what you're getting as far as cherry-picking opponents. Okay, he didn't fight David Benavidez, but apart from David Benavidez, he's literally fought every single mandatory and probably voluntary that he could fight. So, hey, it's your opinion, mate. I just don't agree with it. I think Canelo is done just as much, if not more, than most of the greats in history by fighting the best fighters of his generation. I mean, as I said, you go back to 154 after he lost to, well, even you go back to before Mayweather. He beat, well, Austin Trout wasn't much, but he still defended his title against him or unified the belts. But after he lost to Mayweather, it was the Erzan Lara fight, James Kirkland, Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, Liam Smith, Chavez Jr., okay, not so great in hindsight. The 3 fights with Triple G. Daniel Jacobs, I've just rattled off a few of the others, but I don't think you can say he's cherry-picked anyone, Glenn. I think he's just literally fought everyone that's around him from 154 to 168 and 175 even. So I'm not sure he's saying on the other hand, who's on the other hand is a Crawford. I mean, I just don't rate Crawford's resume as much as Canelo's anyway. Batman. Broken, drunk, inactive Spence or Madrimov wouldn't be top 10 wins for Canelo. No, I think Canelo would just sort of push them aside, maybe about 20 on the list, Batman. Still with Batman. Crawford's been on the sidelines for years, fighting guys that beat nobody. Name his last 6 opponents so we can all laugh. The ghost of Brook. Yeah. Yep. Oh, I won't bring them up now. I'm sure you guys can chat about that in the comments there. Daniel, fair enough, but he had to start somewhere. This is about Crawford, was it? Sometimes it just comes down to who's the more talented fighter. And Keith, this is about Thurman. And Keith is just too smart. More tools in the kit than Tim. I'll get that out eventually. Yep, that's your opinion, Daniel. That's cool, mate. I think we all agree that it's going to be a great fight anyway. All right, Glenn says, yeah, but he fought for undisputed against Spence, then Madrimov for his belts. Who do you want him to fight? Usyk. Yeah, okay, well, that's good. There's the lively chat in there. All right, well, okay, I'll read the comments out. Glenn and Batman having a few words there. And you know what I saw, nothing clear about it. This is about the Madrimov fight with Crawford. Even changed his mind in the Canelo fight, as did Turk on the night. Stop telling lies. Okay. I'll let you guys discuss that in the chat there. I'm just going through the chat there, and it's all Glenn and Batman at the moment. Hang on, where are we? All right, well, I'll read a few out. Okay. Let's get for everyone listening after this on Spotify. We'll bring it up live for them, up to speed. What have we got? Where are we now? I've lost my spot. Hang on. All right, I think. All right. Daniel, And to be honest, I've seen no noticeable improvement in Tim's arsenal in 3 to 4 years. Yeah, well, it's not a bad call, Daniel. I mean, I know his level of opposition has increased, obviously, but yeah, and look, that's probably what brought him undone in the end, wasn't it? Is that because he hadn't improved his arsenal in the last 3 or 4 years, and he came up against an elite fighter in Murtazayev and before that Fundora, and maybe he got away with a lot of those things in those fights against the lesser lights, and he came up against those good fighters and his flaws were exposed. Look, the Spencer fight last week was probably hard to take from as well, because I think obviously Joey Spencer pretty much let Tim have his way with him. So it'd be interesting to see how good he is against Thurman, whether Thurman lets him have his way, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So, Batman, you know what I saw, nothing clear about it, even change. Oh, that was the Canelo, about the Canelo fight. Do I need to bring up Benavides, Batman? Yeah, well, I said about Benavides. I'm not saying he didn't dodge Benavides or decide not to fight him, but apart from that, he's literally fought every single half-decent fighter from 154 to 175 in the last 7-8 years. So I'm not sure how you can say he's ever cherry-picked Glenn, because he's literally fought everybody. Batman. So he fought 2 good opponents in 5 years, and he's pound for pound. This is about Crawford. Not one of his opponents went on to beat anyone most hadn't previously. Okay, yep. And in regards to Benavides, Batman says, so Crawford's above Canelo because of Benavides, who's had one common opponent with Canelo in Plant. We only got stopped by one of them, and it's not Benavides. Yeah, you're right. Well, Canelo stopped Plant, didn't he? So, and Benavides couldn't. So, yeah, there you go. If you're talking about that, I love these back and forth. So, as long as you make sense, all good. Have your say. And Glenn says he went for the belts, and he's put the exclamation marks in there just for good measure. What do you think he should have done? Yes, okay. Glenn again. Canelo has say in his what's that? Canelo has say on who he's fighting, handpicked market opponents for years now. Okay, yeah. Well, all the good fighters do it. Glenn, Mayweather, De La Hoya, they all do it. So Crawford fought who he had to fight to get the belts. I'll ask again, who should he have fought? Who should he have fought? Well, I'm trying to think. At welterweight, who was around? Well, he fought Spencer. Look, this is another case here, Glenn, as far as Terence Crawford goes. I think he cleaned out the division. Well, it's not a bit like you're saying about Canelo. I mean, what I'm saying about him, he fought and beat everybody around him from 154 to 175. Crawford's a little bit the same. It's not probably his fault that he only had Errol Spence there as a dance partner. I know he had Cal Brook and Sean Porter and Amir Khan, but it's a pretty sort of weak resume compared to someone like Canelo. But you can only fight who you can fight to win the belts. So unfortunately, he wasn't like Pacquiao or Mayweather or De La Hoya, who had some unbelievable fighters to prove their greatness with. Crawford hasn't. I'm not saying he's not a great fighter, Glenn. I just don't think he's at the level of Canelo pound for pound wise. That's all. I just don't think he's got the resume. Batman, Crawford is a great fighter, but resume not so much. Yep, just what I just said. If he takes a loss like everyone, his entire resume will be reevaluated and downgraded by 95% of fans. Yeah, that's the nature of boxing, Batman. I like this one, Glenn. Who didn't he fight? And Team Batman says, who did he fight? I like it. All right, Glenn says, so let me get this right. He shouldn't have fought the belt holders for their belts, but should have fought who? Okay, I think we'll get past that conversation now. All right, Naz, forget about Jai McAllister and Big J. Get Batman and Glenn on the debate show. I like it. Well, we might have to do that. We'll get the boys on to debate. And we've obviously got our first subject here. Where does Canelo rank in regards to boxing history, and where does Terence Crawford maybe rank? Actually, before I forget, speaking of Terence Crawford, last week we did the Alexander Usyk In Focus. I'm going to probably find a new name for that, by the way, but at the moment it's called In Focus. And we had a quick look over his career and then matched him up against 10 of the best fighters or other heavyweights of his sort of era. I'm going to do the same with Terence Crawford on Wednesday night. And I'm going to rattle off a few names for you. as far as the opponents go. And I'll put the polls up tomorrow so you can have your say. Listen to some of these fights. Hang on, I'll bring it up here. Terence Crawford. All right, listen to some of these matchups that are going to be on Wednesday night. This is Terence Crawford against Floyd Mayweather Jr., Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, Pernell Whitaker, Costa Tszyu, Roberto Duran, Julio Cesar Chavez, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hector Camacho, and Aaron Pryor. They are the matchups for Terence Crawford on Wednesday night. How good is that? Now, before someone says, where's Thomas Hearns? Where is he? You can't possibly not have Thomas Hearns in there. I went back and forth with a few different names with Camacho and Pryor and maybe one or two others. I've decided to go with those guys instead of Tommy because I think Thomas Hearns was more of a 154-pound fighter onwards. That's where he did his best work. So I'll save Thomas Hearns for someone else down the track. I'll roll him out when we have a De La Hoya or a Canelo or one of those types of guys. I think even though he obviously won a world title at 147, only had a couple of fights there. Well, after he won the title, I think he only had a couple of fights and then moved up after that after he lost to Leonard in 1981. And as I said, he did his best work from 154-pound upwards. So I've just decided to leave him out because I just think a better fight for Terence, I think, or more deserving fights for Terence with the likes of Hector Camacho and Aaron Pryor. They were the two that I was sort of umming and ahhing about. Should I put Tommy in or those two? So I'll put in Hector Camacho and Aaron the Hawk Pryor to fight Crawford. But what matchups are going to be? So tune in on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. and we'll go through all those fights and see who we've got. And if you haven't followed me, do it on Instagram. So I'll put the polls up there so you can vote and let me know who you think would win those fights. All right, Glenn's up for it. That's the debate. All right, Shadow Boxer. What's going on with Paro? Why such a long time between fights? Well, he has changed promoters, Shadow Boxer. He's now with No Limit. I've got a feeling he's going to be fighting in June. Shadow Boxer. Is it June the 11th? Does that make sense? Maybe not. Or July 11th, was it? Either way, June or July, I think it is. They are doing a show in Cairns, Shadow Boxer, so I've got a feeling they'll want him on that card. And there's rumours that Nikita Tszyu will be on that card as well. So, should be a big one. That should be a massive doubleheader. Nice for, and I think I'll welcome this with No Limit as well by bringing in fighters like Liam Paro to take the heat off someone like Nikita as far as fulfilling their pay-per-view requirements. Or the contractual agreement with main event. So I welcome bringing in Liam Paro, but that's why I think Shadow Boxer, they're just looking for the right fight for him at the right time. Maybe, look, he's probably had a pretty grueling last couple of years. He's been on the road a lot, had some tough fights, so maybe they're going to say, all right, well, maybe we'll give him a nice little break and then we'll put him on a standalone show as the main event and Nikita will be underneath him. So keep a lookout for that, mate. I'm sure they'll announce it soon. Batman says, I'm going to set up a panel to debate you on Crawford's average resume. Yes, let's not do that. Okay. Glenn says, I'd have Bam ahead of Tank. I did, mate. I've got him at number 7. Jesse, so just quickly again, so I had Tank Davis at 10, David Benavidez at 9, Junto Nakatani at 8, Bam Rodriguez at 7, Artur Beterbiev at 6, Terence Crawford at 5, Canelo Alvarez at 4, Dimitri Bivol at 3, Naoya Inoue at 2, and Alexander Usyk at number 1. So, yep, I have got him ahead. Shadow Boxer, I'd rate Tszyu above Tank pound for pound, to be honest. Yeah, that was the one I did wrestle with a bit there, Shadow Boxer. And look, I wouldn't argue with anyone that had Tszyu above Tank Davis. It's not a bad call, that, mate, but call it a gut feel. I've gone with Tank. Batman, Munguia would be a world champion. Will go on to have a better career than anyone Crawford beat other than Spence. Could be he's already on his way now. Okay, that's a pretty bold statement there, Batman. Glenn says Munguia, for Christ's sake. Okay. All right. I agree. Pay-per-view is pricey. I spend the money to watch at a pub, eat a meal, and grab a drink or two. I had a punt and went on Talivaha to KO Grutch at $5.50 to $1, which covered the day. There you go, AA. There's a nice way to do it. Just go to the pub, have a bet on a couple of fighters you think you're going to win, and you get it back. So what you spent there, mate, I'm guaranteeing you would have really helped the publican. So the meal would have probably I'm thinking would have cost about $20-25. The drinks would have been $7-8 each. So there you go. You spent nearly $40 at the show, and at the pub, and that's what I hope you are all doing out there. Where are we? Who do you have for Whittaker versus Cameron on Monday? Is that on Monday, is it? Let me have a look. I forgot about that. I'll go for Whittaker LG. Triple G was 300 years old. Okay. Yeah, but then again, hey, when Sugar Ray Leonard fought Thomas Hearns for the second time and finally gave him his rematch, no one was saying that Thomas Hearns was too old. They said, well done for Sugar Ray finally giving him a rematch, and he set the record straight. I look at the same way with Triple G. I know he was unlucky in the first fight. He could have got the win, Triple G. I thought Canelo won the next two fights clearly, but still people are hanging on that Triple G first fight. But, hey, Canelo could have easily not fought Triple G again after that, by the way. Fought him the second time, I thought set the record straight, and then said, you know what, I'm going to fight him a third time, just for once and for all to put it to bed. Got to give him a little bit of credit, Glenn. Sounds like you're not on the Canelo bandwagon, and that's cool. Floyd Mayweather copped it as well, and Mike Tyson's copped it as well. I'm sure all the great fighters cop it by some people, and that's fine. You've got an issue with Canelo. I just don't think you can argue, Glenn, that he's one of the all-time great fighters. It's as simple as that. Oh, okay. Sorry there, Mutzi. Kenshiro Taraji. Yeah, good fighter, but nah, I don't think so. Batman says Triple G was 35, 3 years younger than Crawford. He's now. I see you're making too much sense here, Batman. It's a better win than anyone Crawford faced, without a doubt. Put the pipe down now. Oh, jeez. Oh, all right. Liberty Ranger. Volk has solid boxing skills, but certainly not world class. Conor McGregor found that out against Mayweather. That's what I'm saying. No disrespect to Volk, Liberty Ranger, but there's just a difference in the combat arts, and I just don't think, from what I've seen, Volk very, very good as far as the UFC sort of standard goes, but he's not. I don't think he'd be anywhere near it as far as just a boxer goes. There's nothing wrong with it. As I said, Tszyu probably wouldn't be a good UFC fighter, but doesn't mean they're not great fighters. It's just they've got their own little areas they excel in. Batman says Triple G wins over Crawford's entire resume. Yep. Drunken Boxing, how's it travelling? Hey, I'm travelling well there, Drunken Boxing. Welcome to the show. Batman, Canelo's resume is levels and levels above. I agree. All right, Shadowbox has entered into the argument here. Let's not forget Canelo also took Mayweather to a draw on one of the judges' scorecards. Yeah, well, I don't know how they scored it a draw there. Shadowboxer with Canelo against Mayweather. I had it probably about 9 rounds to 3, if not 10 rounds to 2, but I remember when they read out the scorecard and the look on Mayweather's face, he just could not believe it. I don't think Canelo could believe it either, to be honest. Who was that judge, by the way? I've got his record up at the moment. Who was that? I think it was the female judge, wasn't it? Yeah, CJ Ross had it 114, 114. The other judges had it 117, 111, and 116, 112. 114 apiece. Jeez, what was he thinking? Or she thinking, sorry. Sorry, explicit. Yep, sorry. I didn't reckon. I was looking for the first name, Kenshiro. Didn't recognize the last name. Sorry about that. Teraji. Yep. Japanese fighter. Yep. All right, Tony Clifton. Of all the actors in the entire world, who knew Hannibal Lecter portrays Customato in the 2025 upcoming movie Cousin Mike? I didn't know that, Tony. There you go. Is that Anthony Hopkins? Well, there you go, eh? Actually, I did see something about that. I'm glad they're doing a proper movie. I know there's been a couple of TV movies about Mike Tyson. I don't know what's going on with the feature movie or the proper movie with Jamie Foxx with being Mike Tyson. I'm not sure what's happening there, but they need to do a proper story of Mike Tyson's life. Just amazing. I actually think it'd be great as even like a Netflix series where they can do like 10 or 12 episodes of his career rather than trying to jam it all into one movie. That's what I probably thought they should have done with George Foreman's story. I thought with his movie, The Big George Foreman, I just thought they crammed too much into that movie, and I think they just rushed through everything way too quickly. With the avenue of the streaming services these days, and how now TV is pretty much seen in the same light as the movies, and all the big stars are doing TV as well as movies. Maybe this could have been an instance where they could have done the same thing and had a 10 or 12 series on 10 to 12 episode series of Mike Tyson. Batman. Dangerous fight for both Virgil and Crawford at this point. Yes. John, he definitely dropped the belt and ducked Andrade. Are you talking about Canelo? I don't think he dodged Andrade, mate. And I think what David Benavides did to Andrade probably backed that up why Canelo wouldn't be too stressed about him. But anyway, that's cool. Oh, 154. Sorry, John. Sorry, I didn't see that there. And Batman says Andrade ducked Jamal. Jamal Janabek and Parker twice and hasn't beaten two guys with Wikipedia pages. Settle down on him. And he puts in there as well, facts, says Batman. All right, John. Sorry, I got it to your nose there. I like Canelo and his resume is tremendous, but he did cut some corners. Most all boxers do it to some degree. They all do it, John. When you 100% control your destiny and what you're doing, of course you're going to pick and choose when and where you fight different opponents. That's a luxury you get. And I guarantee you, all the great fighters in history have all done the same. They've all done the same. Look back, we all go on about, well, I don't, but a lot of people go on about Floyd Mayweather Jr. with all his, what he did with his resume. But look at his resume, who he's fought. Wow. I mean, this is littered with Hall of Famers. Go back to Sugar Ray Leonard. Look at his fights with Marvin Hagler, even though he was a challenger. Dictated the size of the ring and the gloves and the rounds, all that sort of stuff. Who else was back in the, and also with Sugar Ray, he fought Donnie Lalonde for the 175 and 168 pound titles. He made the catchweight. I think that was one of the first catchweight title fights we ever had. He was able to dictate it because he was the man, and I'm just picking those two. But there's boxing history will be littered with the all-time greats. Maybe we don't know about half of them, or maybe 3/4 of them. But behind closed doors, the A side will always get everything that they want, because the B side, they know where they stand. They take less money. They take all the terms being thrown at them. That's just boxing. That's just life. As much or as many problems that a lot of people have with Canelo, you can't single him out above some of those other fighters in history because they've all done it. They simply have. John, just tell him the truth on that, and you bring up things that don't relate to what I said. It's about Canelo. I'm not sure you're talking about me or someone else, but that's cool. All right, Jack. Nikita versus Ben Mahoney. Matteo Tapia versus Xavier Fletcher. I have to do a bit of research myself to marry some of their stables weight class up properly, but I'm sure there'll be some interesting matchups. Yeah. Actually, I forgot about Matteo Tapia there, Jack. So yeah, some really good opponents. I'll have a look at it. But Nikita and Ben Mahoney, yeah, makes complete sense there, Jack. We might go through it tomorrow on Walking Boxing. I'll have a look at both stables and see what we can come up with. I forgot about that, about Ben. Don't forget Terramona. Maybe he could fight Brendan Grush or Talavaha. I reckon Terramona and Brendan Grush would be a good fight. Batman says he thinks Tim beats Keith Thurman quite easily. Yep. Look, I will say, Batman, it's really hard to make an assumption, probably on both their fights, really, but especially Keith Thurman. I know everyone's talking about how great he looked against Brock Jarvis, but it's Brock Jarvis. I like Brock. He's a good fighter, but he's a domestic level fighter. I'm certainly not getting caught up with that. I'm probably going on maybe what I've seen from Keith in the past. But Tim's probably in the same boat. This is what makes the fight so fascinating, is that they're both really the unknown. Do we go by what we saw Keith do against Brock Jarvis? Do we go by what we saw Tim do against Joey Spencer? Because I'm certainly not convinced with Tim. Great performance, but I don't think we can really get much out of either guy. So this is what's so fascinating about the fight, and that's why I think it makes sense to make. What's that, Carl? G'day to you too, mate. I hope you're well. Can you tell me how long Boots can eat cabbage soup and keep making 147? Must be tough not to be able to enjoy a steak. Yeah, I'm used to, mate. And as I said, we're talking about 7 pounds. It's just over 3 kilos. So surely he can put that weight on and be fit and strong and healthy. Look, it's not like he's at 147 or he's going to stay there because there's Crawford, there's Spence, there's Garcia coming up, there's Haney coming up, there's Teofimo Lopez coming up. He hasn't got those guys. They're not there, not yet anyway, with the other three. Crawford and Spence, well, who knows what's going to happen with Spence. He's not going back to welterweight anyway. So he hasn't got Crawford and Spence. We don't know what's going on with Garcia, Lopez, and Haney. So he really hasn't got anything. If he had those guys at 147, I could probably see agree with the argument of staying at 147, but I just don't know what he's waiting for. Look, if Norman says, okay, I'll fight you, or Barrio says, yep, I'll fight you, okay, no drama. Get them over and get them over quick. Fight both of them in the next 12 months and then go up. But at the moment, neither one have really shown that much of an interest in fighting him, so just give the belts up and move on. That's what the good fighters and great fighters do. John says, sure wish we could have had a prime Triple G that could start earlier fighting in America and large viewed continents, yeah. Yeah, he did it off Broadway a fair bit, didn't he, John? For most of his career. It wasn't until he really... when did he fight? I think he fought Daniel Geale at Madison Square Garden. He had a couple of fights here at Madison Square Garden, but yeah, I'm with you there, mate. He just didn't really have those big fights, did he? We might actually pick out Triple G one day as far as doing the in focus and match him up against some of those great fighters from the past and see how he would have went. Be interesting reading. John says, definitely Spence 5 years earlier, but it was Spence, I believe, who stayed away. Boxing, Carl says, what about This Is Your Resume? Get the Mike Willisy book out and the sports coat. Oh, I don't mind that. This is your resume. What are your thoughts? Well, I did a couple of these, was it last year? And I just did a couple of specials. One was who had the better career, Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather Jr. That was one of them. That was almost like a debate with you guys online. There was, where does Mike Tyson rank in the heavyweight history? That was an interesting debate as well. I can't remember what the other ones were. Maybe rather than just having two of you guys on there debating, maybe we'll call it the debate and bring up a topic, and we can all have our say. We can vote on it, all the rest of it, and you can let us know. Maybe this is the resume might be one thing. How does Canelo's resume stack up against some of the other greats? Lots of different things we can do, but I don't mind that, Carl. We'll call it This Is Your Resume, or the debate, something like that. Carl, Cooper O'Connell looked good on his pro debut. Mum must be happy. She certainly was, Carl. I spoke to her last week and she was a very, very proud mum. She said it wasn't much fun though. It's easier when you're the fighter and when you especially when your son's in there, let alone a friend or whatever. Yeah, she did it hard. She actually said to me she felt like she was almost hungover in the days afterwards because of all the stress and everything that went into it. Yeah, he's a good kid, Carl, and I'm sure he'll go into some big things, mate. Dennis Andrews fought two Aussies in 1990, 91. Who were they? That would be Jeff Harding and Guy Waters there, Tony. Daniel, hey, mate, who do you have in the Ben Eubank fight? Good question, Daniel. Thanks for changing the subject a bit here, mate. I'm going to go with Connor Ben. Daniel, I just think Eubank Jr. is older. I know he's heavier. We're talking resumes. His resume is a lot better than Connor Ben's. I just think even though he's the smaller man, and I just think he's younger, I think he's got plenty of strength, plenty of power, has Connor Ben. And I just think he'll have a bit too much for Eubank, mate. And I think he stops Chris Eubank Jr. in 6 or 7 rounds. There you go. Carl, what's your thoughts on Richard Torres Jr.? I think he's food for the big boys. Yeah, he's looked okay, Carl, but against very, very limited opposition. I don't mind him. I think he could be a good opponent for someone like Justice Honey, although Justice is not going to risk his number 1 ranking at the moment, is he? But, yeah, I've got a feeling when he comes up against those real elite guys, Rich. But who are the ones where are we calling elite? We've got the 3 sort of top dogs. Well, Fury's gone at the moment. So if you look at Parker, Usyk, and Dubois, outside of that, I mean, maybe Joshua you could throw in there as well. there's really not much else outside of those guys. So maybe he'd be competitive, but I think Torres and Huni be a good fight. Maybe Torres and Moses Otama might be a big fight we might get down the track. So, yeah, it's hard to say, Carl. When they fought nobodies, he didn't look too bad last weekend, but yeah, I don't know. I've got my doubts, mate, a bit like you. Naz, do you see Big Baby Miller carry on like a pork chop at the presser? I did see that, Naz, yep. Queensbury having a very dramatic start to the DAZN days. Adelaide and TV and TKV started it last week, yeah. I did see him carry on, mate. Look, when that happens these days, I just switch off. I don't watch it. As soon as they start with that bullshit, it's like, yeah, that's enough for me. I know I'm old-fashioned. I just don't like it. I just don't think they need to do it. I just don't see the need. That's what was good about, I know they had a little bit of banter, but Tim and Joey Spencer last week, they just got on with the job. Better Beav and Bivol, just get on with the job. That's what I like to see. And Big Baby Miller, geez. He's not really in a position to carry on either, is he, Naz? G'day, Pound for Pound King. How are you, mate? Batman says, I had a bet with Torres, Janabek, Tszyu. What's that? Okay, I'm going to go. I'm not quite sure what that means there, mate. Yeah, Joel 11, Torres, both look pretty average. Torres even more so. Yeah, it wasn't a great fight, was it, Batman? Carl says he's ordinary at best. This is Richard Torres. He should put on 200 pounds and start fighting 4-rounders, the new Butterbean. Hang on, we got the right one there. Hang on. Which one am I thinking of here? Sorry, hang on. Let's have a look. Just have a quick look at his resume. All right, so I'm just hoping I've got the right Richard. Is the heavyweight we'll be talking about there, guys? Is that the one we're talking about? Let us know. All right. Where are we? We'll keep going through there. All right, Carl. Virgil's having a tune-up fight next. Oscar already said he don't need another war straight away. Not a bad call, Carl. He's had a couple of really tough ones, hasn't he? Boachuk and Madrimov. Really tough fight. So I'm all for that. Who has he got that he could fight? I mean, his WBC interim. He could probably fight I don't know. There's a few he could probably pick from there. But, I'm all for that, Carl. And this is why Oscar said as well, why the TKO thing won't work, because you're supposed to have these big fights one after the other. You need sometimes to have just a voluntary and easier fight to regroup. These are hard fights these guys go through in the training camps and everything. And that's one area I do agree with Oscar with. What are we talking about? The bets. Interested to see Nikita back, says Batman. Yep. Liberty Ranger. You can nitpick every great boxer's resume, how good or how old their opponents were at the time. I agree, Liberty Ranger. I think we've just got to look at overall, and I know a lot of fighters get better with age after they've retired, but yeah, I just don't see how you can really have a crack at Canelo's resume. I just think it's one of the best ever. So, all right, William G. Yes, Jeff Harding and Guy Waters it was, mate. Carl, Tim did what he had to do with the opposition in front of him. Yeah, you can't take much from it, but he was impressive. Yes, he was. Yes, Mutzi Prime Triple G was a beast. Yeah, he was, wasn't he? That when he probably 2000 and sort of 14, 15, 16, just unstoppable. The problem was is that at that stage Canelo I think was still at 154, wasn't he? I think he moved to 160 in 2015, so it took a while to get that fight together. Batman, I felt Tim looked very sharp and like his mindset was over what happened. Came no hesitation and put him on him. Also interesting, he said he was watching some Benavides before he went out. Okay. And you can kind of see he upped the volume and speed and took a bit off some shots and then threw some solid shots in between and just steamrolled him. Great way to get the stoppage up the pace. Yeah. Yep. Just want to see him against some better opposition there, Batman. See how he handles it against a Thurman or an Ortiz or hopefully a Fundora, one of those types of guys. All right. Otoma, less proven than Torres in the amateurs, although unbeaten, which is strange, but didn't fight as a senior, but is looking better than Torres as a pro. I agree, mate. Yeah, so I did have the right Richard Torres. It's just the way they spelled it there. John says, I feel like if Eubank isn't drained, he will beat Ben. Ben hasn't stopped anyone since he came up hot. Yeah, no, I'm with you there, John. Look, wouldn't surprise me if Chris Eubank wins. I just think Ben will overpower him. I'm just not sure what Eubank's got left in the tank. Batman says, my friend once seen, this is Chris Eubank in Manchester. This is senior. And as a big boxing fan, asked him to come into his office and give a speech. Eubank Senior agreed and took photos with them all. Madness, really. Yeah, he's pretty crazy. He's a strange cat, isn't he, Batman, that Eubank Senior? He, just his interviews, he's like, is he some sort of genius or something? The way he talks, he talks like he's some toff that's, lives in a palace somewhere, doesn't he? But, geez, the guy could fight. What a fighter he was. Tough as nails. Explicit, any plans to watch the Grand Prix? Waiting for news on the time start. No plans to watch the Grand Prix. The boxing Grand Prix. I was going to thought you were talking about the motor Grand Prix there, Explicit. No, I would like to watch a Grand Prix, but I would like to watch the Grand Prix Explicit, but no, I haven't seen any of the start times yet, mate. So once we know, I'll check it out. Worst case, I'll check it out on YouTube or something anyway, mate. We've got about 6 or 7 Aussies in it, so it should be great. William agrees that Virgil should have a tune-up. What do we got there? Spoke to a well-known trainer from Bayswater last week. He doesn't want me to mention his name. He's convinced Usyk will fight Jai. Not too sure if Jai goes up or Usyk comes back down to cruiser. Oh, look, it'd be great if it happened, Tony. I'm not so sure it happens, mate. I don't think there's any chance that Usyk will come down to cruiserweight. I think he's too, even though he said he'd like to, and he wouldn't probably like to fight Jai or Zerto. The fact that he's been a fully fledged heavyweight for a few years now, he's not coming back, mate. Maybe Jai goes up, but then again, how does Jai handle, putting on the weight, all the rest of it? I think Usyk's only got a couple of fights left in him. I just don't think we'll get to see that, mate. But look, you never know. What's that, John? Is Thurman Tim going to get made next? Maybe the end of summer. They're talking about July, John. And I think we've almost come to the end of the comments there. There we go. Eubank Senior was on his own, just walking around, loving it. Yeah. Let us know what sort of guy he was, Batman. What's it there? Eubank Senior actually learned to box in the US. When he came back here, nobody knew who he was at first. Hence came the cane and monocle. Okay, there you go. Carl, Tim does not need to face Virgil next. That's career suicide at this point. Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to happen, Carl. I think he'll fight Keith Thurman. And then, look, it all just opens up for him after that. And look, that's not going to be an easy fight, fighting Keith Thurman. Again, we don't know really what to make of Keith Thurman. What the Brock Jarvis fight proved. But he does not need, even if he gets past Thurman, he doesn't need Virgil or Tszyu after that, mate. I think after Thurman, if he does win that one, I would think at least one more against that type of opponent. Someone from 15 to 20. Then maybe after that, step up and fight someone in the top sort of 10 to 15 fighters and go from there. But I just don't see him getting a world title fight within at least the next 12 to 18 months, mate. Batman says Tim versus Thurman next, and then look at the landscape at 154. Yeah, I tend to agree, Batman. I just don't think they're going to rush him. I know Tim would probably like to be rushed, but I think it showed last time they rushed from the Fundora fight straight into the Murtazaliev fight. And even though they would have backed themselves to beat Bakram Murtazaliev, obviously they went in with the wrong attitude, but I just don't see the sense in rushing him along this time. Just take your time. I know he's 30 years old now, but I think if they rush him in too quick against a puncher, and especially if it's someone like Ortiz who can punch, bad news for Tim, I think. There's no rush. Give him a year. That should give him, if he fights Thurman in July, he'll have another one before the end of the year. You'll probably have another one by sort of March or April next year. So, what's that? That's sort of 3 fights over the next, till this time next year. Then he can look to reload after that against someone in the top 10. What have we got there? AA. If boxing is a business, Canelo is a good businessman who's made about 250 million. I think it's more like 400 million AA. So he can probably afford to pick who he fights. But does Skull have any business in there with Canelo? Look, you'd probably say no, AA. But look, he's got the IBF super middleweight belt. So why not fight him? Benavidez, as much as we all would have loved to see him fight Benavidez, he's now at light heavyweight and even talking about going up to cruiserweight. So just put a line through Benavidez. Who else is there? Well, let's go through the ratings just quickly. William Skull's got the IBF belt. That is the main reason, AA, above all else. There's no one in the... Well, maybe there's Diego Pacheco, who has fought nobody. Christian Mbili, good, exciting fighter, but again, hasn't really fought anybody. And apart from that, that is it. The only real attractive fight I see for Canelo, is, apart from Crawford, of course, is Janabek Alam Kanuli. I would love to see that fight. Whether he wants to go up or not, he has expressed interest in doing it. But that's probably about it. I mean, he's got Skull, then he's got Crawford. Of course, he's got maybe Bivol if he wants to fight him again. I still don't think that fight happens. Or maybe it does. Maybe. I don't know. I think if Bivol beats Beterbiev when are they fight in October, I think he'll fight Benavidez after that. So he probably won't fight to the end of 2026. Canelo's almost finished by that stage. So maybe that won't happen. So I'm thinking he fights Skull, he fights Crawford, then I would love to see him fight someone like a Janabek. I think it'd be a great challenge. In the meantime, Janabek, who also struggles to make 160, give the belt away, go up to 168, and maybe fight one of those other guys and get a ranking, and then the fight makes sense. All right. So I've got behind again there. What's that? Carl Keith off the couch, Thurman, much safer for Tim. Yes, I agree. Batman says he wasn't there when they met Chris Eubank, but my friend said he was a gentleman and eager to push everyone with his words. Very motivational type. He looks that way. He looks a very intellectual guy, Batman. A very unique character, and I'd love to meet him. One day I'm going to get over there and get to the fights, and hopefully I'll see him there. But I'm on my bucket list to get to England to see a big fight night. And I'd love to get to Japan as well for a big fight night over there. Specifically, in a way, I reckon that'd be fantastic. All right, Carl. Canelo's got the face of boxing blueprint from Floyd, and at this point in his career, it's all business. Let's go, money, Canelo. Yeah, well, look. If you're in that position, Carl, you gotta use it to your advantage. As simple as that. We might not like it sometimes, but that's boxing. That's what it is. Guys, remember, it's a business. A business. And only the good businessmen make money. Don't want to, retire and you got a great resume, you got great belts, you got all the belts, all that sort of stuff, but you got no money or legacy. All right, Jack Pierce. Heard the story of Paul Bumba. No, he was padding his record with fights in Colombia, guys who were paid to lose. He ended up taking some damage, fighting again too quickly, and dying of brain damage. No, I haven't heard of him, Jack, but I'll do some research, mate. Batman agrees they should definitely take some time with Tim. He's a superstar in Australia, and if they're careful, can have so many more big fights. Yeah, I agree, mate. I think he's got 5 or 6 years or good years left in him, at least 5. So again, there's no hurry. Look, having said that, if who's the champions at the moment? Let's just put a line through Murtazalia for the time being. So you've got Crawford's out of the action. Say they said to Tim, all right, do you want to fight Virgil Ortiz for the full WBC belt? Well, of course he would. Of course, I'd say jump in now and do it. What I'm saying is don't rush. If the opportunity comes up, then maybe take it against the right guy. Maybe it would, who knows with Ortiz, but definitely the Fundora fight. But you've got Yoannis Tellez is the interim WBA champion. Not that he's ranked in the WBA, I don't think. But what I'm saying is, look, if something comes out of the blue and you get a shot against anyone except Murtazalia or maybe Ortiz, well, then maybe you would take it. But outside that, I would be just have three fights or 2 fights, whatever it might be, and then look to step up after that. All right, explicit. Eddie Hearn mentioned Shakaram Giazayev. Is that how you pronounce it? As a WBA mandatory. Do you think Boots could vacate his WBA belt to fight Brian Norman. Well, he shouldn't have to do that, should he? I think if it's a unification explicit, I think that eliminates the mandatories, I think. So look at the yeah, you're right. Shakram Giasov, or however you pronounce it. I can never get these right. He's the number 1 WBA challenger at the moment. Lewis Crocker is his mandatory in the IBF. That's interesting too. In the WBC, Devin Haney is the number 1 ranked welterweight. How does that work? Devin Haney, coming off a loss to Ryan Garcia at 140, is the number 1 challenger at 147. Only the WBC. Fair income. Well, maybe the IBF as well. That is just nuts. Yeah, but I think that's the case explicit. If Boots fights Norman, it will be for both belts because the unifications take precedence over all rankings, mate. So you wouldn't have to vacate it. What's that, John? You might have mentioned the guy Charles Conwell at 154, but he's very good and could be the boogeyman. Good fighter, Charles, but I'm not getting too excited about him at the moment because he just hasn't fought anybody. I'll quickly type up his box rec there. I don't, as far as I know, there's no names on his resume that would even sort of stand out. All right, so he is. All right, so he's 21-0, 16 knockouts, coming off a win back in December. Just trying to see if I recognise anyone on his resume. Not really. Oh, Juan Carlos Rubio. I do remember him. No, that's about it. So he's got a long way to go, John. You're right. He could be the boogeyman, but let's just wait and see what he's like against someone that sort of has a pulse. All right, Batman. Skull looks huge compared to Canelo. He does, doesn't he? But they normally do, and Skull shouldn't pose much difficulty, in my opinion. I'm with you there, mate. I think, look, he might be dangerous early, but I think Canelo chops him down, and I think maybe stops him in 8 or 9 rounds, or at least gets a clear-cut decision. All right, Carl says to Batman, no limit got the shit scared out of them when Tim got stopped. They won't put their hand in boiling water again. Yeah, good call, Carl. All right. Carl, not a fan of the Skull after he only got the belt facing, Vladimir Shishkin. Yeah, who the fuck is that guy? I'm with you there, mate. Yeah, but look, all things aside, he's got the IBF belt. Why? I'm not sure why people would be giving Canelo a stick over fighting a world champion. I know he's not a credible world champion, but he's got Canelo's belt. It just makes all the sense in the world to get this guy. They want him to be very marketable when he goes to Riyadh. So get this guy out the road, get the IBF belt. So when he fights Crawford, it is for undisputed. It makes sense in my mind. Does Skull deserve a Canelo fight? Well, absolutely not. But he's got that IBF belt, so it makes all the sense in the world for Canelo. 94 Zol. How are you there, mate? If Tim beats Thurman and he can't get Fundora next, he might go up to 160. Yeah, that was also said there too, mate. He was saying how hard it was to make weight the last time, yeah. Excuse me. And you're right, he did say that, mate. And, yeah, it's a good call. If he beats Thurman and you got to remember, these other fighters in these divisions, you got Fundora looking to fight Zayos next, and then it's probably going to be Ortiz. You've got Crawford going up to fight Canelo, but if he vacates the belt, Tim's not ranked in the 154-pound division, so you can rule that out as well. He doesn't want to fight Murtazalyov again anytime soon. And if Fundora fights Zayos, either way, and then if he does fight Ortiz, he's got the WBO and WBC belt tied up. So there might not actually be a fight for Tim. So if he goes to 160, all of a sudden, I've got no doubt you would have Janabek, Lara, and Adames all putting out the welcome mat for Tim Tszyu. I got no doubt, because none of them, apart from fighting each other, have got anyone to fight. I mean, who's Janabek got? Shane Mosley Jr. maybe if Chris Eubank Jr. beats Ben, but then if he beats Ben, he might be in line to fight Canelo. There's really no one else there. So that might be it. If he can't get the fight world title fight at 154. He might go to 160, and I'm sure he'll walk straight into a world title fight up there within a fight or two. So, good call there. 94 Azol going up to 160. All right, John. If Joshua and Fury fight, you can go to Wembley with 100,000 people. You might pass on that cluster. Yeah, 100,000. Would be good, though, John. Geez, it'd be hard to get tickets, I would imagine, to that fight, even with 100,000 tickets there. How good would that be, though? It would be massive. I know the timing's not right as far as the stage of the career's at, but on the other hand, is the timing never better as far as where they currently are? Now, Fury's made no noise about coming back out of retirement yet. I know he's teased a couple of videos here and there, but overall hasn't really made any noise apart from that. Joshua still wants to fight. It does make sense. And ideally, it's not at the right time. 5 years ago would have been the time. But on the other hand, for where both the guys are at right here and now, I think it would be a massive fight and just as big as it would have been 5 or 6 years ago. 100,000 sold out probably in a couple of days. Carl sees the Skull fight as being an easy one for Canelo. But on the books, it's 2-time undisputed at 160. Well, you got to remember, guys, it's not Canelo's fault he got stripped. So I have not got a problem with him saying, all right, well, you guys stripped it from me. Now I'm going to get it back, and then I'll fight Crawford for all the belts in September. Makes all the sense in the world. Batman says, true, undisputed ×2 will matter in the long run, and if he's having 4 fights in the next calendar year, it will do. 100% it will. And I don't mind the fight. Sort of showcases Canelo to the Riyadh audience over there, and they want to obviously give him a very beatable opponent. And Skull will be tough. He's a big guy. He's got a good jab. Very limited in his skills, though. I think Canelo outclasses him as the fight goes on and stops him in the long run. What's that there, Carl? Virgil is showing us what I wish Tim could. Yeah, give him a chance there, Carl. He's only had that one bad loss, remember? The Fundora fight, we all give him a pass for that. The Murtazaliev, as horrifying as it was for all us Aussies and Tim Tszyu fans, it was a one-off. Apart from that, he hasn't been too bad. So let's give him another crack. Batman says, Virgil is a bad man. Madrimov was soundly beaten, had some nice shots in response and boxed well earlier, but Virgil's pressure, combinations and power just took the fight out of Madrimov. Yeah, he fought very well in that, Batman, didn't he? And he was brave. Yes, he was. Batman says, Carl, my only stain on Canelo is avoiding Benavides. I can't think of another Mexican all-time great that avoided the best fight in their respective division. Yeah, as much as I'm a Canelo fan, Carl, I can't really argue with that, mate. I have no argument to say that, while it makes sense that Canelo avoided Benavides. Keeping his record probably mattered, but I don't think we would have seen a Julio Cesar Chavez or a Juan Manuel Marquez or Barrera or Morales or any of these types of guys avoid fighting the other great fighters in the division, mate. So, yeah, I'm with you there. And again, I can't defend Canelo in that instance, but I'm not going to totally throw out his whole career because he didn't want to fight Benavides. And, I mean, Benavides is dangerous, but he's a big, big guy. All wrong for Canelo, in my opinion. I still think Canelo beats him, by the way, but you got a big guy who's probably going to outweigh you by 20 or 30 pounds on the night. I can understand why he didn't want to fight Benavides, but I don't think it does great things for those that are already looking for faults in Canelo's resume. Anyone know why Marquez versus Morales never happened? Good question, Shadow Boxer. I don't know. I know they were supposed to have fought a couple of times. It just never happened. It's probably the one big all-Mexican fight that just never happened. You know, it was just, and yeah, I'm not sure, mate. So if anyone does know, let us know. Mark says, Inoue versus Junto next year is the fight to go to in Japan. I'm saving up now. Mark, if that's the case and there's tickets available, mate, I will be there as well. As long as this lottery thing doesn't happen, I'll be there 100%, mate. I would love to go and see Inoue and Junto Nakatani. What a fight that would be. All right, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes to go. We'll get a few more comments. How do you rate Ramos? That's Ramos Jr., I'm assuming. I thought he beat Lubin and is a dark horse at 154. I thought he beat Erickson Lubin too, Mutzi. I do rate him a lot. I do. And I'm with you. I think he could be a dark horse at 154. He just needs the opportunity. And look, he's a guy that doesn't get spoken about too much. But I sort of throw him in the same mix as, say, as Zayas. A really good, young, up-and-coming fighter who's got got some limitations, but the positives will far outweigh the negatives. And I think if we hadn't had that Lubin loss, it would be probably Ramos looking at a world title shot now instead of Zayas. So, yeah, no, I'm a fan of his Mutzi. I think he's a good fighter. And as I said, I think you're right. It could be a dark horse at 154. Carl, I want to see what David's next move is with the WBC. Funny how he couldn't get it at 168. Yes, we will see, Carl. Well, who's he going to defend against? Who is the WBC? Who is he going to defend against first at light heavyweight? Better Beeve is number 1. David Morrell is number 2. Number 3 is Albert Ramirez. So don't be surprised if Albert Ramirez pops up as the mandatory for David Benavides while he's awaiting the Bivol and Better Beeve winner. But what happens? No, I was going to say, what happens if Better Beeve wins? I mean, he's got 2-1, so he will probably fight Benavides after that. Who would you rather him fight? This is Benavides I'm talking about. Bivol or Better Beeve? I'd rather probably see him fight Better Beeve. I reckon that'll be a ripper. Carl, Jesus Ramos would be a good opponent for Tim. He would be, Carl. Very, very good fight. It would be winnable for Tim, but geez, it'd be tough. He's a good fighter, Ramos, and yeah, not bad. Maybe he could be someone they might look at if he gets past Thurman in impressive fashion. Carl says, I think Tim is hot property at 154. With the Aussie backing, he can make some big moves at 154. PBC have a plethora of 154 pounds. Yeah, I'm sure they've got probably a sort of a climb or a ladder sort of mapped out for Tim, Carl. And, of course, it starts with Thurman, and we'll see after that. But you're right, they've pretty much got nearly all the good 154-pounders tied up, haven't they? What's that, Batman? I'm going to Inoue versus Cardenas. Was close going to Canelo versus Skull, but thought Vegas would be the best place to watch all the fights that weekend. Good call, Batman. So what's on in Vegas that weekend? Because Canelo's in Riyadh, Garcia and the Haney fights are in New York. But I'm sure they'll have them on the big screens there, mate. But I actually thought about going to that card as well. But as soon as they said that there was no crowds allowed at the Times Square fight, yeah, it sort of turned me right off because I thought we'll go to New York on the Friday and then fly back to Vegas on the Sunday. But I'm still thinking about going to Kambosos versus Hitchens on June the 14th because the Hall of Fame induction is the week before in upstate New York. So if that's the case, I might see how I go. But that fight still hasn't been finalised, let alone tickets being put on sale yet. Where are we? I'll just did I miss a couple there? All right. Batman was at AJ and Dubois. That many fans for a boxing match is just crazy to see. Looks like something from a film. That would be awesome. What's that there? Oh, Mark asked if says you're a lucky guy. Any chance? It was you asking the question at the press conference. No, just a fan like me, mate. I've had press passes in the past many times, but I'm not a reporter. I don't like asking questions. I just like to be there and just observe and film it all and everything else, and then do my comments, obviously, on my vlogs. But yeah, I'm not really a reporter guy. But good to be there anyway. It was great being there for Jai's fight in January. It was great being in his change rooms and all that after the fight. It was awesome. What's that, Carl? I like how the sanctioning bodies are bucking the system in regards to Turkey wanting full control in boxing. Well, they're all going to bow down to him, Carl. They all want the Saudi dollars, don't they? What's that, Carl? Chavez Jr. tapped out with Tszyu. That's a warrior. He was a warrior, Carl. No doubt about that. Right, a couple more comments and we'll call it a night. John, yeah, all the retired Mexican legends wanted Canelo to fight Benavides. And Canelo's not really that well revered by his fellow Mexicans, which is a bit unusual. Maybe in retirement it might be a bit different, but they're all warriors, and I don't think they're gonna let Canelo off the hook for not fighting Benavides. All right, couple more there. What do we got? What's that there? Carl Benavides will retire after the trilogy. He'll be 41. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me there, mate. All right, last couple there. In-away card in Vegas. Undercard seems decent. Espinoza co-main with MJ and others. Great weekend. That's so many fights. Actually, before we go, let's have a quick look at that. How do you spell it? In-away. All right. The monster. All right, so has I got the card? Oh, yeah, looks like they've got it up there. So they've only got 2 fights on there at the moment, In-away and Cardenas, and they've got Rafael Espinoza and Edward Vasquez for the WBO featherweight title. Good fight. So Espinoza 26-0, Vasquez 17-2. It should be a really good fight. Now, having said that, Edward Vasquez is... I thought he was their mandatory. He's not. No, he's not. He is ranked number 10. So a voluntary defense for Espinoza. All right. I think that's about it there, guys. We'll call it a night there. Hang on. One last one. Carl, why didn't we get AJ versus Wilder? That's a massive disappointment. We could probably do an episode on this too, guys. Is that what are the biggest fights? Did I do that? The biggest fights never to happen in each division. Is I'll tell you what, I would say Lennox, I think I did do this. Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe would be one at heavyweight. And yeah, AJ and Wilder would be the other one. AJ Fury is probably even bigger. There's probably a few out there. Maybe I'll do a bit of research and do that. Some of the biggest fights that never happen. It's a good thing to do on a walking boxing, or it's maybe a standalone episode. But guys, look, that's going to do it for tonight. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you come back on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, or worst case, watch it after the fact. It's Terence Crawford and those fights. I'll just rattle off who he's going to be fighting again. He's going to be fighting. This is the dream fights, by the way. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, Pernell Whitaker, Tszyu, Roberto Duran, Julio Cesar Chavez, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hector Camacho, and Aaron Pryor. Wow, they're the 10 fights that we're going to match up against Terence Crawford. So plenty to look forward to on Wednesday night. And of course, every day, every morning, check out Walking Boxing. I do it 7 days a week. I won't say 365 days of the year, but a lot of the days, most days anyway. So tune in for that. But guys, thanks again for everyone tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.